Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Andrew Turner, host of the Praxi Pod. And today, welcome to Edosa Odaro. How are you, Edosa?
I'm very good, Andrew. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm good. Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, very good. A good way to end the week, and nice to get some time with you because I know you're a busy man, busy gentleman. I suppose one thing we're doing with the Praxi Pod is bringing together a set of guests to talk about data and what's going on in the data world and how people can have pragmatic strategies around making something valuable and impactful in what they're doing with data. One of the things we always want to do is have some great guests on. So Edoso is a very knowledgeable guy, experienced guy, but also very vocal, I think, about things that are going on in the data world. So it's an honor to have you on the show today. So thank you for taking the time to come and join the show.
Most welcome. Pleased to be here. I'm sure it'd be an exciting conversation as per normal.
Yeah, never boring. Whereabouts are you joining us from today? Are you anywhere exotic, or are you?
I suppose you could think of the Middle East as an exotic part of the world. I'm actually today in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. So
Okay.
Yeah, exotic, of course.
It's probably definitely a lot warmer than where I am, anyway. So that's the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, to be honest, it's very kind of it's interesting you say that because Riyadh is slightly elevated and it's quite in the middle of the country, if you like, and that means that it's quite dry. It's very dry. It's
dry heat,
but it's also very dry heat. And at this time of year, it's actually kind of just coming out of the winter time in Saudi Arabia.
Okay,
which means we're looking at sort of 15 degrees thereabouts. So it's not as warm as you might think.
It's only 15. Okay, I thought you were going to say about 30 or something. No, okay.
No. But I mean, it will warm up very quickly, actually. But at the moment, it is about 15 degrees. So yeah, quite pleasant.
So I presume you're not over there for the boxing, although there is obviously quite a famous boxing match. So it'd be like boxing central over there, But I'm not going to see you hanging out with Tyson Fury or anybody like that anytime soon. Maybe I don't know.
No. So I certainly wouldn't be in the ring, That's for sure. No, but go ahead, Andrew.
No, I was just going to say that's a bit like a segue into it. So, if you think about, you're in a boxing ring, in your business, and you're trying to wrestle with the data. You're boxing with your data to try and work out who wins. Does the data win or do you win?
Well, there's certainly something to be said about that. I mean, it's funny you talk about boxing, but it's kind of almost feels like it's everything central in the Middle East at the moment, and certainly Saudi. There's so much going on here that of course, there's all the publicity type stuff, the boxing, the football, all the big stars are coming in here. There's the F series, the Formula E series has been kind of out here for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of a lot.
The electric,
here.
The Formula E.
I know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They're kind of out here. They've had a couple of them down here actually. So interesting times.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah, no. So I mean, I know that obviously, one of the things that back to the day job, or day job and night job. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I love about you is that you not only had a prolific career of what you've done, like in your day job. But what I think I really admire about what you've done, you actually share it a lot. So you not only you put it into books. You've got some best-selling worldwide books that you put out there that I'm a proud owner of. I haven't got a signed copy yet, but maybe when we meet up in London or something, we can get a signed copy eventually. But no, I mean, you're prolific in the way that you. I love having the conversation with you on LinkedIn about stuff. About you putting stuff out there. Disruptive thinking, disruptive ideas. Are people seeing this? And to get that conversation going, because it is in this whole data area. It's been out there for decades, but then people, not very few people have cracked it. Yeah, worked out what to do, what is the path, and how do you fix it. So, I celebrate all that stuff you do because it's I think it helps inspire the next generation of data leaders, because obviously we're not 21 anymore. How do
No,
you
I'm
inspire the
afraid
next
not.
generation? And yeah, well, you never say never. Maybe they'll find out this magic thing that you can take that makes you go reverses your age. You see, maybe we just need to invest in that at some point.
Yeah,
But
indeed.
the only thing is that I was looking at the stat with the other day was, I think it's by 2025 it's going to be something like 175 terabytes. It's some ridiculous number of amount of data. It's literally the amount of terabytes and zettabytes that are going to be on some kind of daily or weekly or monthly basis by 2025, which is next year, right?
Mm.
Um, and obviously, we've been around for a few decades. That is just like a number that with so many noughts on it, you just can't comprehend. So, so I think about some of the challenges of stuff that I've done before, and probably you've done before in data, and you just think about the organizations of the future. How are they going to cope with this? It's just incredible. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
it's
it's just
difficult to.
I think it's the phenomenon. What I'm saying is it's growing like this. It's growing. It's just it's like a hyperbole, isn't it? It's just incredible.
Yeah, growing in quantity. Is it growing in quality is the question, right? And I think the
Mm,
bigger thing even beyond that is, are we getting more out of it? Are we getting more value? Because it's
mm,
it's it's one thing to create all this data, and to be fair, it's just a huge amount. There's more data being created now by non-humans than actually from humans ourselves, right? So it's not
wow.
all about, yeah. I mean, it's all the devices. Devices
Mm,
literally not only talking to us and us talking to them, they're talking to each other. There's the whole other world on the edge. The IoT piece.
yeah,
That's kind of
machine to
happening in the
machine.
background,
Yeah.
and we don't think about it. It's all these things
Mm,
talking to each other and making things happen. And guess what? With things like driverless coming in, and there's all this. There's going to be astronomical amount of data moving around the place and doing things. Yeah. But I think the big question really, quantity is one, is of course is something that it's an easier thing to kind of look at in some ways, but it's really about, are we improving on our utility, what we're getting out? Are we actually getting more value? Are we also becoming safer? Are we getting,
yeah.
so there's a whole raft of things that we need to think about with all of this kind of going on.
And I suppose that links to that your latest book, doesn't it, about that? Because it's that's what you're talking about is the value equation. Because
Mm.
maybe there's a badge of honor. There's a badge of honor with some organizer. Oh, look how much data we've got. But if I apply my my which is my Tesco heritage. We had this thing called DNA, which I don't know if we spoke about before, but kind of data, insight, action. So basically,
Okay.
we used to call it what is the data. So it's great. Somebody coming to you with all this data. Great, well done, right? But I said to him, well, okay, what's the insights out of it? Don't just come in with a load of data. Like
Mm.
what's the insights you've already made, and what are the insights you need to make? That you want a decision from me? What decision have you already made on that insight? And what do you need
Mm.
approval to make from me as your manager or whatever, your business leader, to actually
That's right.
do an action? And getting the organization into that mindset is a journey in itself, because it's like education, it's empowerment, it's decision making, it's confidence. Yeah. So I don't know if I mean that was drummed into me quite a few years ago. I don't know if you've seen that today, or you've seen that kind of issue still. But
No, we do. I mean, of course, there's a huge, you know, I think has been around for a while. Being data driven, and everyone thinking about being data
mm,
driven. I think, to be honest, it's one of those that I'm not overly sold on. I think it's great, to be kind of data driven, but I think we need to think even beyond that, and make sure that we actually get involved, as opposed to just chasing after after data. But also, I think one of the big things that I find is that a lot of times when we think about what we're trying to get out, from a data or AI standpoint, we tend to be quite narrow, in terms of I want to save a bit of money, or I want to, I want to grow, my customer base, or whatever else, comes to mind. But really in the real world, we can't be as narrow as that, because the consequences of getting one outcome could be, quite broad. And it's almost like thinking about what are the unintended things that could happen, as you try to chase after one specific dimension. And I think that's a fundamental thing that, when you look at the value, or what's a value, when we talk about value equation, if you like, you've got to really be mindful of that. And even if you think about it, even in terms of, should we, look at as an organization, what's value in some ways? It's a in itself a fundamental question. There isn't a single perspective of what that is. And that's a real challenge for a lot of organizations and a lot of leaders.
You raise a point there. Is what you're saying there is about actually getting clear on what the definition of value is in that organization or in that industry. That's what you're saying is kind of fundamentally a foundation, and then how you map it back to what data you've got available today and what you could have available if you actually put some kind of change program in place. Is that what you're thinking about there? Is that
absolutely.
Some of that's some of the foundational issues you're seeing where people haven't got around the table and agreed on that, and that makes it difficult to deliver stuff and make sure you get on the same page.
Absolutely. Fundamentally, there's always going to be different perceptions, different sort of I suppose views on what value means to certain organizations, or actually even executives within, right? And so if you think about, I suppose I like to think about value from three perspectives. I think you can group them into three kind of categories, if you like. Most people think of value, and they think of value from a financial kind of standpoint. So it's financial value. There's a whole other raft of things that are kind of non-financial. Everything from well, I suppose the most non-financial would be ourselves. As humans, we can't really put value on life. But also there's a whole raft of other things that are very difficult to quantify financially. So there's a whole raft of things that you can think of as a non-financial, if you like. But in between that, there's this. I like to think that maybe I think of it as capability, right? But really is it kind of a technology view on value as well, which you typically get from executives who are tech executives, your CTOs, your CIOs, sometimes your CDOs and CDAOs. That value piece, which is almost around the delivery of capability in itself. So there's all these different perspectives, and each one in itself can be broken down into specifics around, for instance, what does a CFO think is value? What does a CRO think? What does a risk officer think is value? and all that can be financial, but actually it's different perspectives within the financial value perspective as well. So it's an interesting kind of area to look at.
I suppose it depends also on the ownership structure, doesn't it? About who are the shareholders, who are the value, who are seeking value. I mean, when you were talking, I was thinking about like the success map structure that Kaplan and Norton used to do. About this set of enabling capabilities enables the non-financial measures, enables the financial measures. But what you pointed out quite rightly is if you skew just purely on one dimension and you ignore the other dimensions, you don't look at it from a triangular point of view or a Bermuda Triangle point of view, then you basically could see a serious business impact because you're not being holistic enough in your thought process. You're not building capability. You're not thinking about anything about from financial measures, and then the business could potentially suffer on the back of that. Is that when you kind of is that when you see
absolutely. So you've got to you've got to be aware of these perspectives, but also be aware of the consequences, because sometimes doing the one thing with data, with AI, just delivering a single solution can have implications across a number of these dimensions, sometimes all of them. You know, take a tangible thing like, I want to save a bit more money, so I want to reduce my costs. I want to, reduce the number of, say, people return goods to your warehouse, or you want to reduce the cost of delivering something out to your customers. You know, just by doing that, you might actually end up, shrinking your customer base. You might do something that inadvertently says, well, I'm not satisfied with this service anymore because, for instance, I'm not able to, send items back. You do things that actually have consequences that you haven't factored into your solution in itself. And it's you've got to work out. I mean, you're never going to have something necessarily that has, zero downsides, but you've got to be able to measure out, what is that you get and what you're losing. Excuse me. By what you're doing, and balance that out, and collect all of those dimensions, and actually look at what's the opportunity cost of doing one across, over the other. So it's a fundamentally interesting area, but not one that a lot of people really spend a lot of brain cells on.
But why is that, do you think? Is it just that they're trying to get to the result? They don't realize the effort and work to get to the real result that's sustainable. They kind of they try and skim across it. Is that what you're finding? It's like how you have the discipline to hold them accountable for that, for getting that, because it's foundational, isn't it? If you don't map that out properly, and then you just go on, oh yeah, and this is, I've been on the buyer side of buying things, buying capabilities. And just getting that stuff lined up is incredibly important. Otherwise, you're not going to get. You put a business case in, you're not going to get the payback on it. There's going to be an investigation on why didn't you get the payback on it? Why didn't we achieve those business objectives? What I find sometimes with technologies is sometimes you get into this thing about, you get the kind of shiny toy syndrome where, oh yeah, let's do this, let's do that. But you've got to really be very diligent about making sure you make the right choices around that. Otherwise, you're not going to get the right payback. And I'm not saying that that's the only dimension, but usually you have to have all the stakeholders who care about that. You're allocating resources and budget to do something.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're right. I think the reason that I find is it's actually a lot. It might sound quite a simplistic reason, but I think the underlying challenge is that we don't ask enough questions, or we don't ask questions of enough people. Right? Is
that thing about ask better questions? Ask better questions.
Yeah. Because ultimately, if I went out to marketing, right, and we're looking at a specific marketing use case, that's one perspective, and you could deliver on that, but you have no insight then into what does doing this actually do to, say, sales, or due to the guys in security and fraud, or what does it do to the guys, what does it actually do to our P&L? You have no rounder sort of, or even look at the guys in customer experience, look at the guys in sustainability, look at the guys in ethics. What does that do in that? How does that impact on what they're trying to achieve, right? And I think it's really kind of that. It's asking better questions, like they say, asking the right questions, asking questions of the right people, and bringing all that together. I think there's one of the things, perhaps maybe a reason why some of these things actually happen is that there's a real big focus, of course, understandably, on alignment, and this may sound a bit controversial. And because of that, we're either pre-filtering and looking for all the things that align, and look at all the things that all the people saying giving the same answers, if you like, and forgetting either to collect, if you like, the information about misalignments, things that don't actually, the answers are not the same, if you like, and as it is within that you get two things. You get potential implications, but you also get opportunities to innovate. So when you're getting answers that are not the norm and not the same as everyone else's answers, that's in amongst that is where you're finding nuggets of ways to advance or things to be concerned about. So I think, sometimes it's just you want to ask the questions, but sometimes people aren't giving the answers because there's a focus on we better be aligned and go towing the line, and and everyone's got to give the same answers. So it's a complex challenge.
That's a really good way of flushing it out. I think that's a really good. Actually, what is the misalignment data? I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're getting the same answers, you've got to be asking yourself a question: am I missing something? Because you shouldn't be getting all the same answers, basically.
Yeah, it's that kind of like group think. An event, where did the answer come from, and then is it just the most senior person in the room, so everybody just kind of falls in line? That's what you kind of saying. How do you get that robust debate?
Yeah, I talk a lot about this actually in my second book. Really, this idea of how do you really get those answers, and how do you utilize them? Because that's the other thing. Even if you do get them, lots of people tend to just filter them out because these are there's the fringe answers. We don't need them. They're actually fundamentally important.
So yeah, I mean, I suppose building on that, I mean, in terms of what you're seeing, so obviously I know that every time we speak, you pretty much in a different country doing something with different organisations. You've got lots of variety going on, yeah, lots of perspectives. What are you seeing of the things that are keeping people awake at night at the moment? What kind of people concerned about, or worried about, with all this hyperbole and this tsunami that's going on at the moment? Any perspectives on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. I mean, there's so much buzz. Clearly, I think, I think no one wants to hear the word Gen AI anymore. There's just too much of it out there. But listen, the, I have a kind of view on buzz that might sound a bit strange. I do think buzz is actually helpful. Literally helpful, um, in some ways, because it helps focus minds and create attention, which is significantly lacking in today's world. There's too much out there, and keeping attention is hard. But I think the kind of downsides is there's just a chaos and confusion that it creates, and it's literally, we feel like everyone's in panic mode. Everyone's like literally, you know looking at, we've got to get on the bandwagon of this thing, and I think there's a big danger around that. But also equally, some people are getting that sort of situation right now where they're thinking, because there's too much of this, it's just buzz, so just want to block it out. But that's equally dangerous as well, because it's there's implications that we cannot avoid. Is it's out there, is going to impact everyone's lives. So you've got to be taking a pragmatic and progressive kind of view on how do I move from this being a challenge, and to being an opportunity for us. So yeah, I think there's plenty of buzz. I mean, of course, in the Middle East, specifically where I am right now, there's a huge, like crazy amount of investment, floating around, and a huge amount of ambition as well. But I think the real challenge is this whole raft of constraints around here. There's constraints around regulatory constraints around what you can and can't do. There is, things around data movement. There's things around, privacy concerns, and data residency and things like that, and they're very strict rules. And so, you've kind of got these two almost opposite forces, trying to achieve the same kind of thing. So the challenges here are quite interesting, and one thing is not lacking, like I say, is ambition and investment. But the other thing as well, I think it's a real sort of pull on skills. So people are desperate to get good people kind of out here, and so yeah, it's an interesting sort of place to be. But of course, as you can imagine, people are trying to crack, how do we manage to get all the good stuff that the new tech is bringing out, without falling foul of regulation and the constraints that sit around that. So yeah, it's an interesting time.
Yeah, I mean, I was in Copenhagen last year, and I presented about beyond Gen AI. Yeah, which is kind of like everybody's talking about Gen AI, so I thought let's talk about what's going on beyond it, because
Yep.
obviously it goes through a hype cycle. And what I was saying was that you need to make it real. Yeah, how do you make?
Mm.
What are the use cases that actually you can then you can prove before you scale it? What's the impact on the organization chart? What is the people plan around that? What is the structure of your new organization once you prove these capabilities as you evolve it into the future? Which roles are new roles you create, which roles that you need to transition people into, which are the roles that you may need to retire over time or transition. And because obviously there's a long list of the roles that apparently are being commoditized or replaced, etc. But it's interesting. There's the day I presented, actually, that McKinsey put a report out about, they reckon that it's going to actually accelerate transformations by they're over 10 years. Yeah, if you get this right, you can actually leapfrog and accelerate, and do things 10 years earlier than what you're planning to do. Obviously, that's just one point of view from one of the strategy firms, but it just makes you think, rethink that thing, and actually how do you get the right people around the table to actually talk about that? So, what you just
Mm.
said is spot on. I think there's an opportunity with it, but actually, how do you educate, and actually, how do you, put the governance in place? You don't just like look into the future and just wait until everybody else has implemented. You actually grab the nettle and get on with it. Do something rather than just being an
Mm.
observer. So I don't know. Hopefully, it sounds like the people in the Middle East have got an ambition around that. But actually, how do you navigate? Because it's not just like flick a few switches and it's done. You've got to think about all the ramifications of what you're doing as well. Like
Absolutely,
anything that's of
absolutely.
value, it's not just a straight thing to do, is it? You've got to put some effort into it.
Well, absolutely, and clearly, there's a lot's been said about the kind of positive value, the positive impact that Gen AI could bring, and AI more broadly. I think there's this research around, it could be, you could be looking at a 25% uplift on global GDP. I mean, it's crazy to think that that's even possible, right? Within a few years. So it's significant, and and that's all kind of great. But I think what people don't talk enough about is all the kind of downside risks that come with that. We talk about regulation. It's probably about the most difficult kind of thing to regulate globally at a global level. How do you regulate, within the world as we see it today? Is it going to be regulated by the UN, or where do you put it? This is an intangible. It's not quite. I mean, it was difficult enough trying to regulate things like social media, right? But that's almost something that is, compared to Gen AI, it's kind of tangible in some ways, because you've got platforms, and big platform providers, and you can sort of target those. But when you're talking about code base that you could, take out, open source, and then customize for your own use and do X with it, in any country on the planet, then you're talking about a different kind of thing. And so I think there's so many things that we need to be thinking about, at this point. Of course, there's the whole question, even before Gen AI came out, about what AI does for to the labor market, right? To jobs, and people are talking about universal wages and all that kind of thing. And now you're looking at an acceleration, and a further acceleration and all of that, right? And what's that all that going to look like, And I think we're not, certainly, clearly at a policy level, governments and that, need to look at that. But even within organizations, what's that going to actually do within individual organizations? So it's an interesting time, really. I think there's just so much good stuff, but we've got to keep those blinkers on, and really make sure we're looking at the rearview mirror as well, and making sure we know what's coming behind us.
Yeah, don't be scared. Don't be scared.
Don't be scared, but be aware.
So in the kind of role that you are, and you are helping and supporting and advising, etc. What are you seeing as being the kind of if you look at a 12 month horizon, 12 to 18 month horizon, what's kind of top of mind, what are kind of the things you must do, should do, could do, won't do. I don't know if that's that kind of like prioritization piece, but I suppose it does. That's what it depends by industry and by organisation. But is there kind of any themes coming out in the conversations you're having?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, the use cases haven't radically changed. We're still, and that's the thing that people need to remember, that Gen AI, data, all of that put together, ultimately are here to, they're made by us, they're by us, but they're also for us. So ultimately, what we're trying to do is solve human problems, and and solve commercial problems, within that as well. So in themselves, the objectives, what we're trying to do, whether that's trying to save money and you're trying to reduce your cost base, those haven't fundamentally changed. How we go about them, what are the things we actually do, what kinds of technologies, of course that's radically changing, like literally at speed of light. But I think also the one thing that this all kind of does is it changes the kind of the equation, if you like, in terms of I suppose speed and time to deliver. So there's a huge amount now where people are thinking, this shouldn't take that long, right? And I think the danger for a lot of professionals, a lot of people within the kind of data and AI industry is if you're not, radically then thinking about how do I now deliver in this world where stakeholders aren't again less and less patient, even more so than they used to be, right? You need to be very, very quick at sort of understanding how do I deploy these things, especially within situations where their constraints remain. Obviously, there's concerns about what happens to your data, where does it all go, and such like. So you've got to be really front foot, really proactive about how do I now deploy some of these technologies. And so I think that's it's a different kind of challenge, but the solutions, the problems you're trying to solve in themselves, the ultimate objectives haven't actually radically changed.
But is it? So what you're saying is it the human dimension? Is it that kind of ways of working? How you actually educate the people to work differently? That's going to get the change within the constraints of a regulated industry. That's going to help to get. Is it that reinvestment in people and ways of working,
Yeah.
the kind of the future of the workforce, and how you actually get GSD, get stuff done, kind of thing? Is that
Yeah,
that doesn't go away. Whatever buzzword technology the marketeers are talking about, whatever they call it next time, AGI or whatever, it's like you still got to get those. There's still going to be humans involved. We're not having robots implementing this stuff. We've got because there is a human productivity impact to it, isn't there? As far as I'm aware.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, I think there's definitely going to be humans in the loop, if you like, as we now like to say. But the part where I suppose where there will be some changes, what we're doing, is most of the things that we do today are to service ourselves and service humans, of course. Who does it? That's a big thing that's changing. Of course, there's going to be more and more virtual things and AI things doing things for us. But the other it's kind of dimension to it. I think I kind of alluded to it at the start. I talked about data, flying around the place. Data being generated astronomically, but also the fact that it's not just humans generating data, right? I think what's that, of course, is devices generating data and devices communicating amongst themselves. So there's a whole device economy kind of going on, and you can always think of devices as having their own kind of communities almost, right? The parallel device world going on out there. But I think the piece that's potentially changing ever so slightly is you almost hear people talk about this thing where ChatGPT, you get like an email, or you craft an email with ChatGPT. I send it off to Andrew. Actually, what Andrew does is it chucks it back into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT then crafts a response to my email, right? So ultimately, you've got ChatGPT talking to ChatGPT, right? But think of that in a broader sense. You could have AI agents, you could have, bots and things like that attacking, say, your infrastructure, whether that's your IT infrastructure or your networks or whatever else. And then you'd have within, obviously, organizations, you building out AI type, capability to detect such intrusions and and react to them, right? Or be proactive in preventing them from happening, right? So you almost have this other thing that's kind of going on that we need to be aware of, which is that there's a whole other world, behind the
What you're
scenes.
saying is it's not just human to human, it's human to machine, machine to machine, machine to
Correct.
machine to machine. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct. So that's something that I think we're going to start to see more and more of, and that's an area, especially on the risk side, that we need to, really keep our eyes open to. That's for sure.
It's a fascinating time to be involved in all this stuff, isn't it? It really is. It's quite. It just makes you think. It makes you, it's not just common old garden. It requires critical thinking, and really getting a really concrete, robust, resilient plan together. And not missing no stone unturned. Yeah, it's fascinating. Fascinating. I mean, I've never seen. I mean, in the time I've been in technology, I've never seen things moving so fast. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Every week there's something happening. It's like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
The pace of change is gone to warp factor. It's like Star Trek, warp factor 10, please, Captain Kirk. Yeah.
Indeed.
So just to wrap up today's episode, I mean, one of the things I was going to say was, I mean, in terms of data leaders and yourself and other people that are across the world that listen to this episode in the future, what are is there any kind of takeaways, any kind of thoughts and things to summarize what they must consider as they embark or continue their journey to to do this, what I would call triple crown, grow revenue, reduce costs, improve service. That's what they call it, triple crown, isn't it? Triple crown outcome.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. What are the three things? It's so much to be thinking about at the moment. But I think if I was to pull out three things, I would say, given where we are and given the pace of things and given actually what's available right now, we really need to be focused on not reinventing. To try your hardest not to reinvent, because there's so much kind of out there that can accelerate what you're doing. So don't reinvent. Second thing is, I would say that you really, really, really need to think about getting the right people around the table, getting the right people, right skills to help sort of tease out what's actually kind of going on, what's needed, and how to go about things, whether that's at strategy level, advisory level, implementation, writing code, whatever that thing is, or actually just getting the right stakeholders around the table. So that's the second thing I'd say. And the last one is really, I think, especially at this kind of point where we are at the moment, you've got to really be thinking about your return, right? You really need to be thinking about, what is this giving us as a return? What's the outcome? And really think of that from a much broader perspective, not only financial return on investment, but actually a return more broadly. What are the implications, positive or negative, and how are those palatable, sufficiently palatable? Are there things we need to be mitigating, against? And I think that's going to be fundamental now, especially given the speed at which things are actually changing. So those are three things. So I'd say don't reinvent, get the right people around the table, and focus on your return. So that'll be the three things.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last one, what you're saying is actually do that scorecard on the kind of the financial, non-financial, and capability areas, and then it allows you to suppose stack rank and work out where do you go first. That's kind of what you're saying, I think. Is that right?
Absolutely. You've got to do that. I mean, the challenge with that is we don't always have clear lines. Sometimes the one thing that you do would have implications across the three different dimensions we just kind of talked about. So it's really just, and that's where the right people around the table comes in. whether that's right in terms of on the delivery side of skills, the strategy advisory, the implementation piece, or whether that's actually around the people who are on the consumer side, your stakeholders, such that you actually know, what these things actually are. I mean, part of the reason why you really want to understand as well the return piece and the value piece is you need to be able to understand how to actually quantify, measure those things, and know that you're actually heading in the positive as opposed to the negative direction of that value proposition. Because a lot of people also, when they think about value and outcomes, don't think that there could be negative outcomes as well. So how are you going to be able to identify that? You've got to be able to measure and monitor, right? So it's important to really focus on that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. And I'm sure we'll be asking you to come back on the show in the future to give us some snippets, and you'll be probably in some other exotic or very hot country or interesting country or an interesting market to be working in. So thank you for the time today. It's appreciated.
You're most welcome, Andrew.
That was Edosa Odaro, data raconteur and best-selling author, and helping lots of organisations around the world get value out of data, I suppose. And highly recommend you going to Amazon or different booksellers and buying Edosa's books. And I know that you've actually done something which is very interesting about actually doing some free advisory stuff on LinkedIn, I think, haven't you, recently? It's probably oversubscribed already. So,
indeed.
I mean, if people want to find out more about you or contact you, what's the best way of doing that?
No, I think LinkedIn. I mean, these days, that's the go-to, isn't it? I'm available, findable on LinkedIn. but yeah, I mean, obviously it's a bit of a challenge. I mean, but LinkedIn, I think, is certainly the best point of contact.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, have a wonderful day and enjoy yourself, and obviously have major impact where you are today. And see you soon. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Andrew. See you soon. Bye for now.